All right. Who's ready to rock and roll? All right, cool. Camera's back on. All right, some people learned that it's okay to eat during class while making me starve looking at you. Got it? All right. Remember, I have to sign a certificate saying that you passed. So, just saying. All right, guys. So I did mention to you guys that I needed you to be 100% on this, right? And I need you to pay attention. And if you have any questions, you guys been participating, which is great. But if you have any questions, I really, really need you to put it into the chat. It is a chapter that I don't care. Some of these chapters are going to be like this, that I don't care how long it takes for us to complete. I prefer that everybody understands. So we have this chapter. We have chapter 14, 15, and 16, which is mortgages. And I will, and appraisals. I will spend a lot of time in those because, again, I prefer that you understand completely versus just trying to rush through and finishing the course. Some schools out there might have a different approach to it where, hey, I gave the material and they have to study as well. And I agree with that at some point, or to a certain degree. But certain chapters do become more difficult. And just reading off a book and just teaching in a way that, like, hey, here's the info, I don't think it's the best way, right? Specifically certain chapters. This is one of them, chapter 3. I told you that, no problem, Mauricio. So I told you that we're going to have chapter 1, 2, and 3 to be the basic, the core of everything you're doing. So it's like the rules, regulations, the fines, who you are, who you're supposed to be. That's what we're learning today with agency, right? And if you guys don't understand that this is the core, then we're going to have a problem because 30%, as I mentioned yesterday, 30% of the exam is chapter 1, 2, and 3. This is the core, all right? In my exam, I have a broad question, so it covers everything, right? So you'd be well-rounded. In the state exam, they hit you a lot with agency, right? When we get to chapter 10, and I'm just giving you an idea of what's about to come. When we get to chapter 10, 11, and 12, we're going to repeat everything we learned today because we're going to talk about listings. Who are you in a listing? Who do you represent? We're going to talk about contracts. Who do you represent, the buyer or the seller? Right? We're going to talk about leases. And in rentals, as you guys learned yesterday, you also have to have a license. And by having a license, who do you represent? So it goes back to today's chapter, right? So chapter 3, which is how do we represent, who do we represent, and what are our duties when we represent, okay? So make sure, again, you guys understand there's going to be a page here that I'm going to tell you guys to, 2 pages, to pay extra attention to because there's roughly 6 questions about them in the state exam. And it's 2 pages you're going to need for your whole life as a realtor, okay? So, Erica, you did not miss anything because I just started, so don't worry. All right? If you guys have any questions regarding the website, throw it in here. If you guys have any questions regarding Quizlet, I see Ariel just got a question here. It's asking you for a password. Okay, so I'll address that in a second. Guys, make sure you don't send me private messages because when I hit reply, automatically it's under private, so I cannot see it. I don't see it right away, and I might be think I'm replying to everybody, but I'm not. So don't send me private messages in the Zoom. You want to send me private messages, send it to me in WhatsApp or anything like that, okay? So this is just so we flow and I don't stop every time. All right, guys, so let me just see if I have my phone on silent. Just want to make sure. All right. Guys, just one quick second. Somebody cannot sign in. Okay. All right, I updated that. And on top of this, I have my son asking me how to start a fire for the barbecue. Gotta love it, huh? All right, so everybody's eating except Bruno, even my son. Anyway, all right, so you guys ready to get started or what? Thumbs up, great. We have 34 participants. Great. Okay. Who are we missing? All right. Blaz is joining us. Okay. All right, guys, so we're going to move forward. And here we go. We're going to talk about agency because you're going to be real estate agents, right? So you need to know what the agency means. We're going to talk about brokerage, so what a broker is supposed to do. And then we're going to talk about ethics because as you know, every 2 years you have to complete CE credits, and those CE credits must include at least 2 hours on ethics. So you start learning ethics now, and then 2 years later, you get ethics again and again. All right. So with that being said, we're going to go to page 22. Quick question, actually, before that. Is there anybody that doesn't have access to, just put it in the chat real quick, doesn't have access to the student portal yet? Or hasn't seen the book, or hasn't seen any of the tools that I've been talking about? Okay, Quizle is there, and I'll address that in a second. All right, Connie. Great. So do me a favor. I think you have my number. If not, I'm going to give you guys my number again. Send me a message on WhatsApp so I can check your access, okay? 25. That's my cell phone number. Make sure you have WhatsApp because I will add you to, or through the student portal, you'll be able to be added to the WhatsApp group, right? But make sure you guys text me on that. Is there anyone that doesn't have the ebook yet? So this version of the book that you guys see here, is there anybody that doesn't have it? Perfect. Okay, I'm going to put the link here anyway. Connie, you going to say me to everything? All right. All right, so I just posted there. It's the link for the book. Victoria says she was having problems with WhatsApp. Yeah, after what happened yesterday, I think you're going to have a lot of problems with me. I'm just saying. So all my resources are going to break down to you. That's all it is. No, just kidding. What was the problem you're having with WhatsApp? Can you tell me? It's probably a user problem? Okay. Everybody can see my messages on WhatsApp. Is there anybody that doesn't? Let me know. I mean, guys, reach out to me. If I don't answer right away, so if you have problems with any of the tools, like Quizlet, Michelle just wrote as well, send me a message. I just gave you my number again. Send me a message and let me try to help you out. I did help out a few of you yesterday and the day before. So if I don't answer right away, the only thing I ask you guys is to text me 2, 3, 4 times if you have to. Because as you guys can tell, I just said before I was making sure my phone is on silent because I don't want to be interrupted while I'm teaching you. All right? So I might not reply right away if I'm teaching or if I'm in a meeting, or like I said, guys, I teach my kids throughout the day, so I might not be able to reply right away. But text me as many times as you need to. It's okay. Don't call me because I'm not going to answer, but text me as many times as you need. Okay? Thumbs up. Is that a deal? Great. All right, cool. So let's hit this. Connie, were you able to download the book? Just want to let you know, let everybody know right now if we're good. I just sent the link on the Zoom, so it should be there. Did Connie freeze? Did we freeze? Did I freeze? No, you're still moving. Okay. Some people are still eating, so I know we're good. All right. So we're going to talk about brokerage. Guys, what is brokerage? Who can tell me what is brokerage or brokering? Okay, write down in the chat real quick. What is brokering? Anybody? The middleman. Love that answer. Absolutely. Right? So a brokerage, you are the middleman or woman. You got it? So you're just in between and you're trying to help somebody, just like Mauricio wrote, help somebody with a transaction. Okay, Tamari wrote intermediary between the deal or entity. Yeah, absolutely. So here's what we're doing, guys. We're helping. Okay, let me define it this way. Especially for real estate. Okay? Especially brokerage for real estate. Because there's different types of brokerage. There's insurance brokers as well, mortgage brokers, and so on. Middle person, that's the politically correct way of saying it. Got it. Got it. So let me put it this way. Do you guys know what Uber is? Do you know what Facebook is? Right? Do you know what Airbnb is? Right? These groups have nothing. They're billionaire companies, but they have nothing. Did you guys realize that? Airbnb is not a hotel. It facilitates people using their homes to make extra money, and the people that want to go to a hotel but cannot afford a hotel maybe, or need a whole more like a vacation, a home away from home type of thing, while on vacation, right? It's there, but they don't have real estate, right? And they facilitate that transaction through their portal. Facebook is the biggest media outlet, but it has no content produced by them. It's produced by us. We're the ones posting stuff, right? Uber is the largest cab company without cabs. They broker. That's what it is. All right? So guys, there is a potential of making a whole lot of money if you understand this concept. You don't sell, you don't buy. Our job, and that's what we're going to learn today, is to help people accomplish their goals, right? And getting paid in the process. Again, that's what Amazon does, that's what Uber does, that's what Facebook does, and so on. Very smart, aren't they? Right? So, as soon as you understand this first step, we're good to go. All right? So, a Remax, a Century 21, us, New Direction Realty, ERA, any of these companies, they are mediators. They're brokering. They're helping somebody. They're consultants, helping somebody achieve their dream. Very, very important. Okay. In real estate business, a broker is defined as the person who is licensed to assist others in real estate transactions, and I think you guys already know this, to receive compensation for those services. Can you get paid from the transaction? Tell me in the chat. Can you get paid from the transaction? Is it too soon to trick you guys? Should I wait another 2 or 3 minutes? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so we'll stop right there. So the answer is yes and no. The answer is depends. Can you get paid directly? No. It has to be payable to your broker, and then you get paid from your broker. So the answer is yes, you do get paid from the transaction, but through your broker. All right? Don't worry, I'll give you some time to wake up, and then I'll jump in with the tricky. So that's what we say here. A real estate salesperson works on behalf of and is licensed to work under the supervision of the broker and getting paid by that broker. Now, years ago, let me put this here, right here. Okay. Years ago, in New Jersey and elsewhere, well, most states have this, right? The principal, so pay attention to the word principal, is known as the client. So if you're taking notes down, please write somewhere, principal equals client, right? Because the principal, also known as the client, who employed the broker was almost always a owner who wished to sell the property. So pretty much what we're saying is that the real estate broker acted as a seller's agent. We were representing the seller because traditionally the seller was the one looking for somebody to expose the property. All right. Now, they were usually compensated with a commission if a ready, willing, and able buyer, we'll talk about a ready, willing, and able in a second, if a ready, willing, and able buyer was procured. Look what I have in green. This is the beginning of the things you really, really, really need to understand. I'm going to repeat so many times. In this traditional real estate transaction, the seller was the client to whom specific duties were owed, and we're going to go over the duties in a little bit. And the buyer was the agent's customer. Look how this is in bold. Client, customer, whom the agent must only treat fairly and honestly. This is kind of like how we finished yesterday. I just brushed right through because today we're going to go in detail. Who is the client? Who is the customer? Okay? Today, however, agency relationships have become a little bit more complex under the old seller than under the old seller-based model. A prospective buyer or person seeking a property, right, to rent, to buy or to rent, right, can also be a principal and hire a broker to act as a buyer's broker or buyer's agent. The key word is this: hire. The moment you see something that says hired, then that means you're representing that person because they hired you, they employed your services, okay? In this relationship now, the buyer is the client. The buyer is the client now, which is the person to whom specific duties are owed. Again, we'll talk about the duties in a second. And the seller became the customer, who the agent must only treat fairly and honestly. All right? And we're going to stop right here. So what we're saying is very simple. If you hired by the seller, then that's your client. That's who you represent. That means that the buyer is your customer. So client, seller, the customer, the buyer. If a buyer shows up, you don't represent them. So all you have to do is treat them fairly and honestly. Say, yes, I'll show you the property. Yes, I'll submit your offer. Yes, this, yes, that. But I don't owe you any specific duties. If the buyer says, guys, if the buyer says, hey, I want this house for free, just be nice to them. I don't think that might happen, but put an offer and we'll see. Right? Are you going to tell the buyer, yes, I'll get it for free, or are you going to uphold your client's, the seller's, intentions, needs, and desires? Right? You're going to uphold the seller. Okay? So, very, very important. All right, Steph just wrote that I'm freezing. Am I freezing, guys? No? Okay, so maybe your internet. I think it's a little hot in here, so hopefully we won't freeze today. Let's hope so. All right, not on your end. Okay. All right, but if you guys see me starting to freeze or anything like that, please send me a message right away. Thank you. I appreciate it, Steph. Victoria, you couldn't find what? I'm sorry. Just tell me what you couldn't find. I'm sorry. I can't. You didn't say anything? It says right here, Victoria Summers to everyone. I can't find it. I will message you if I don't get in. No. Wrong chat? I don't know what happened. All right, cool. So, Zoom's playing tricks on us. That's what it is. Freezing Steph, and then this. All right, guys. Does anybody else see Victoria's message? Just saying. Just saying. All right. Don't worry. It's not a state exam question, so you don't have to answer that. All right. Let's move forward. Can we view this chapter on YouTube? All the chapters are available on YouTube and they're live. So what we're doing now is live, and it will be available for replay on YouTube as well. All right, guys. So what I was saying is, if you represent the seller, then the seller is the client. If you don't represent the buyer, then the buyer is the customer. Let's flip the roles. If the buyer hired you to represent them while finding a house, then the buyer is now the client. Again, I said the key word was hire. All right? So I want you to write this down. Whoever hires you is your client. The person who you represent. Whoever hires you is your client, the person who you represent. And then you're going to write a note also, whoever you don't represent is the customer. So if you're representing the buyer, then all the sellers you're going to go to, all the properties you're going to go see, all those sellers, they're customers. You just got to treat them fairly and honestly. Okay? If you represent the seller, all the buyers that come to the property, they are customers. Treat them fairly and honestly. And again, the easiest way to see this and think of this is, let's say you're hired by a restaurant. Okay, you go work at a restaurant. Customers walk in. They're not clients, they're customers. The client is your employer. That's the one who you're going to uphold certain duties and certain interests, right? So the buyer that walks in to buy food asks for the food. And the customer is always right? Because we have to treat them fairly and honestly. Customer is always right. Sure, no problem. We'll see how we can do this, how we can do that, but never hurting your client. Does that make sense? If the client decides, so let's say you talk to your manager, talk to the supervisor, whatever. If the client decides to, hey, okay, we'll give the dessert for free. It's not you making the decision. You, the waiter, you are the agent. Does that make sense? It's the same concept. Who do you represent? The restaurant. Customers walk in to sit down and eat. Treat them fairly and honestly. You guys good with this? Okay. So client or principal is whoever you represent, whoever hired you. Customer is the one you don't represent. Just treat them fairly and honestly. Now I stopped over there because I wanted to confuse you guys a little bit. Ready? Ready for me to confuse you? Look at this. It is also possible, and I mentioned this yesterday, but now we're going to go in detail. It is also possible for a licensee to function as a transaction broker. That means we're working with a buyer or seller or both, so you can represent both sides. But look what it says here. Without representing either one. So before I read the rest, if we don't represent either one, who's the client? Neither one. They're customers. You got it? You do not owe specific duties to either one of them. What you're trying to do is manage the transaction and make sure it completes. So your job is not to pull more to one side or to the other side. Your job is to make sure a transaction goes through. So you're just a consultant, not a representative, okay? So you help them, you guide them through, but you don't really represent them. Is that clear? Who hires a transaction broker? No one. The seller, okay, so we're gonna go over, that's why I would say it's gonna confuse you a little bit. We're gonna go over this in a little bit, that when you sit down with the seller, or when you sit down with the buyer, one of the things that's gonna happen, guys, is you have a listing agreement, and in that listing agreement, or buyer's agreement, there's a paper that says how you could represent them or not. And you have to explain all that to them. You have to be able to explain, hey, Mr. Seller, I could represent you as a seller's agent, right? Or I could represent as a dual agent if I find a buyer myself. Or as a transaction broker, I don't represent you, but I'll do my best for the transaction to go through. All right? So it's still the seller coming to you. It's still the buyer coming to you. You're just expressing how you want to work with them. We're the ones that explain this to them, not them asking you, hey, could you be my transaction broker or my seller's agent? No, that's not how it happens, right? You're the one telling them, this is how I intend to represent you. And those are the 2 pages. It's a disclosure. Those are the 2 pages you guys need to know by heart, because you need to be able to explain to the clients what is a seller's agent, what is a buyer's agent, what is a dual agent, and what is a transaction broker and they have to sign that document. You must be part of the file. If it's not, you could get sued, and your broker, for allowing you to do those things without that document, right, can get sued as well. And we already learned from yesterday, if the broker has guilty knowledge, what could happen to everybody in the agency? Everybody gets suspended. So let's make sure this never happens. All right, Jonathan's asking, a transaction broker has to have a broker's license or can be a salesperson. If you guys remember from chapter 1 and chapter 2, who do we represent first? Tell me, who do we represent first? Write it down. The broker, exactly. So every time you see, if we see transaction broker, we're talking about how the agency is going to represent the seller, because you're not representing the seller. You represent the agency that will represent the seller. All right? So if we have seller's agent, it's the broker. Buyer's agent, it's the broker. Disclosure agent, it's the broker. Do you guys understand? We assist the broker, so everything we do is on behalf of the broker. Very, very important that you understand that. Okay? So do you need a salesperson license or a broker's license? No, you need to be under a brokerage to be able to do these things. That's all I can say. You need to be under a brokerage to be able to do these things, because you represent the broker. Okay? All right. Next thing we got here. Queenie, you're a little transparent. I see a bridge and then I don't know what's going on over there. I got 2 cameras on for her. Zoom is really playing tricks on me. All right. Next thing. So in this case, as I said, no agency relationship is created. Now, this statement right here, the creation of agency is determined not by who pays the commission, but in most cases, by a contractual agreement between the broker and the buyer or seller, okay? So here's my question to you guys. I want everybody to answer. There's 40 of you on the chat right now, on the Zoom, so make sure everybody answers. My question is, who pays the commission? Hit me. What's the answer? Okay. So I guess you guys are starting to pick up the pace. The broker pays you the commission. Exactly. Very good. Now, the next question is, who pays the broker? Okay. The seller, the buyer, client, the client's company, the seller, depends. All right. The bank doesn't pay anybody. You're talking about cashing the check? All right. Title company, nope. Closing attorney, nope. All right. So the answer is, ready? Depends on the contract. It's not the client, because the client could be the buyer, and most of the times the seller agreed to pay. It's not the customer, because the seller could be the customer, and again, most of the times the seller is the one that agreed to pay. So could the buyer pay? Yeah. Could the seller pay? Yeah. Based on contract, whatever the contract says. So this is very important because of what it says here. The creation of agency is not determined by who pays the commission. All right? Just like the payment is not determined by whoever hired you. Very, very important for you to understand. Money does not mean agency. Agency does not mean money. Okay? You could be hired by the seller and the buyer agreed to pay. You could be hired by the buyer, but the seller agreed to pay. Whoever agreed to pay pays the commission. That's the answer. Okay? You guys good? Great. What if there's a salesperson representing the buyer, another representing the seller, to both get paid? So the broker, Tara, the broker will get paid the 100% commission. So whatever it is, the bulk, the listing broker traditionally, the listing broker gets paid everything and then splits with the other side's broker. So if I am the listing broker, and let's say who we got here, Connie is the listing agent, then Connie works in my agency, right? She's the one that got the deal or the property to be posted either on the MLS or advertised somewhere else through the agency, through the broker, right? And then let's say that Michelle works for Catherine. Catherine is the broker, Michelle is the agent, and Michelle brings a buyer, okay? What's going to happen is my seller most likely already agreed to pay this full 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% commission, all right? So that means that they paid me, I give a split to Catherine, which is the broker for Michelle, right? Even though Michelle's the one that brought the buyer, but it's through the broker. And then we have a split, right? My split with my listing agent, which is Connie, and Catherine will have a split taken and given to Michelle. So each office has their own split, okay? So it's not a salesperson that's getting paid in the transaction directly, it's the broker. And broker splits with whoever brought the buyer. If it's in-house, then we split it in-house. If it's another agency, then my broker, so let's say me in this case, will pay the other broker, and then it's between you guys to figure out how much from you get from that cut. Okay? Good? Great. Again, that's why it's very important for you to understand when you go out there, you understand that commission is not everything, right? Because they can offer you whatever commission. There's companies offer 100, there's companies offer 90. The average is a 70-30 split, right? But that doesn't mean it's what it's going to get paid to the other agency. Each brokerage has their own independent agreement. The bulk, the gross commission, gets split between brokers, and then it's according to your layers. But commission is not everything. Training, integrity, and ethics. That's what you need to find from a broker. You got it? Training. Very, very important. So how would they ask the question? In terms of who will get paid? I think I'm going to address more questions. Shaish, I'm not cutting you off here. But I think I'll address more this part once we get over to later on in the fiduciary duties. And sometimes when we get into contracts, especially when we talk about listings, we are specific on the question towards the listing agent, or when we talk about contracts, we're more specific towards the buyer's agent. All right? But what you need to understand is what I was saying before. This was a question already that could happen. Who's the one responsible for paying the commission? Is it the seller, the buyer, both, or depends? I mean, it could be. You could even say client, right? So it depends. But this is already part of the question. All right. Next thing we got is agency. And in front of agency, the word agency means employer, employee relationship. Okay? Sorry about my handwriting. 1, I'm a lefty. 2, it's a screen. 3, I just have horrible handwriting. But anyway, so agency equals employer-employee relationship. So for an agency to exist, that means there is an employer. For an agency to exist, that means there is an employee. So if somebody hired you for your services, even as an independent, they created an agency agreement. Good? All right. So employer-employee relationship. Now, the role of a broker as the agent for his or her principal is a fiduciary, David's favorite word, so you guys know. It's a fiduciary relationship that falls within the requirements of law of agency. Now, a fiduciary relationship, fiduciary, again, this term, fiduciary relationship is one of trust and confidence. Okay? Fiduciary is one of trust and confidence. That means they trusted you with their money and or property. If the seller is selling, they trusted you with their property and of course their money, because if you represent them properly, they'll make more money, right? The buyer trusted you with their money and the property. First with the money and then finding the right property for them. So again, fiduciary means they trusted you with their money or property. Okay, you need to know this word, fiduciary. And if you're taking insurance, or if you're thinking about taking insurance, it's very similar. It's going to be there as well. Okay? Now, here's what fiduciary really means. What is this trust and confidence? Well, if they hired you, then it requires, right here, it requires putting the principal's interest above all others, including, guys, the broker's own interest. So important. I'll be mentioning this. I'll mention again and again and again. It's client first, then you, then everybody else. You must care for your client and be honest and fair to everybody else. You guys got it? So first, your client. If you represent the seller, it's the seller's interests. Stop looking at your money, because that's what most agents will tell you, and a lot of brokers and agencies will train you that way. It's the money, 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 money. No. It's client. Treat your client properly and you'll have a never-ending source of referrals. If you just care about your money, you'll have a never-ending liability and possible lawsuit. You guys got it? The money will come, regardless. Take care of your clients. The money will come. I have one of our agents here. He has a client that's been with him for 8 months. And finally, they found the house that they want. And they've referred business to him, even though they hadn't purchased yet. Why? Because he gave his best to the client. He made sure that the client did not fall into a property that he couldn't afford. He made sure if the transaction was proper for that type of client, right? And even though they haven't bought it yet, they're now under contract with the property. He's been there for 8 months. You guys got it? Not there 24/7 for 8 months, but he's been there finding properties, touching bases, and so on. All right, guys. So very, very important. Client first, you second, everybody else third. Okay. All right, Jeff. I appreciate that. We'll talk about that later, okay? But I appreciate that you are at least listening. All right, next. Types of agency. Types of agency. Now, what I want you guys to remember is that agency is not only for real estate. The laws of agency, again, is every time there's an employer-employee. So it happens in the real estate world, the insurance world, the mortgage world, and so on, employment and so on, okay? So the term agency, it's an agreement between the seller and the agent, between the buyer and the agent of any type of business, right? But there's different types of agencies. Let's start with this one. Universal agents. What I want you guys to write in front of universal agent is full powers. Full powers. And I'll explain that better in a second, okay? But a universal agent has full powers. It says right here, the universal agent has authority to represent the principal in all matters that can be delegated. He or she can, right on top, enter into any contract on behalf of the principal without prior permission. Without prior permission. So I don't need your permission in order to do something that will benefit you. Remember, this is not just for real estate. We're talking about laws of agency, employer, employee. Okay? So I'll explain better in a second. All right, Mauricio, thank you for the comment. I appreciate it. Anyway, so a general agent is empowered to represent a principal in a broad range of matters. So here, what I want you to do, where it says general agent, you're going to find the spot available, and you're going to write some powers. Some, not all, not full. Okay, some powers. General agent has some powers. Okay, some powers. And that means that the general agent may bind the principal in a broad range, to any contracts within the scope, so it's very limited, look, within the scope of his or her authority. Very, very limited, within the scope of authority. Again, I'll explain in a second. The last one is special agent. And what I want you to write is one power. One power. Ready? So let me explain the three of them. With full powers, okay, with full powers, the universal agent is not a realtor. Okay, realtors, salespeople, brokers, broker salespeople, we don't fall into universal agency. Universal agent will be, let's say, when you appoint somebody in the medical directive or a living trust or a living will. Okay, so if anything happens to you that you become mentally or physically incapacitated, you have somebody to handle your affairs. Simple, right? In that instance, if you're mentally or physically incapacitated, you're not able to perform your duties, right? Then somebody else will do it for you. They don't need your authorization, they don't need your permission to be able to accomplish certain things that will benefit you. And that's why we said full powers without prior permission. Another way to explain is if you're a parent, right, and obviously you have kids, or if you're a parent and you have pets, because some pet owners call them children and you are the parents, right? So if you have that, nope, not power of attorney, Jeff, we'll go there in a second. But if you're a parent, usually what I like to say is we don't ask permission, right? We don't ask permission to our children and say, hey, we're moving across the country. What do you think, right? Most of the times, and depending on their age, they're not even able to really understand what's happening. Do we talk about that with them? No. We just grab everything and go. If we believe it's for their best interest, that's what we do, correct? So parents are universal agents. They have full powers over their children and their best interest. You guys got it? Yes? Okay. The next one, general agent. Now we can find this one in real estate as independent contractors. For instance, a general agent could be a property manager. See, a property manager has some powers, as I wrote here, some powers. They don't have full powers, but they have some. They have to find tenants, collect rents. They have to manage the budget, right? When to hire or fire people, so supervisors, superintendents, whatever. Contract for services or not. So they run more than one thing for the owner. So they have some powers. But when it comes to selling the building, can they sell without telling the owner? No. So they don't have full powers. Does that make sense? Certain decisions like the type of insurance or the expense that's needed to repair the building, can we do it without running by the owner? No. So again, we have some powers as a property manager. So that's a general agent has some powers. And the last one, the special agent, This one is hired in a specific capacity only, so one power only. For instance, you guys, as salespeople, you are special agents. The seller will hire you, or the buyer will hire you, or both of them, to accomplish what? Their goals, not yours, theirs. But once it's done, once we closed, does our business relationship continue for that transaction? No, it's done. So that's why special agents, one specific capacity only, right? And by the way, if you're hired by the seller, guys, write it down for me. If you're hired by the seller, what are you hired to do? If you're hired by the seller, what are you hired to do? Okay? Some of you answering, if you did not know this, I would kick you out right now. Good. All right. So, guys, I said earlier, and for some of you, I said it in the previous session, so for those of you finishing this week, I did say our job is to help the seller find a buyer, to market the property. Some wrote sell. We don't sell anything, guys. We just talked about brokerage. We just talked about Uber, Amazon, and all that stuff. We don't sell anything. The seller sells. The buyer buys. What do we do? Write it down. What do we do? We market. We broker. We mediate. That's what we do. You guys got it? In the whole transaction, whether you represent the seller or represent the buyer, we market the property. So the seller or we market the buyer. We get them together. That's right. You guys got it? All right. Very important you understand. So, 3 types of agencies. Now, Jeff, you wrote power of attorney. So let's talk about power of attorney real quick. Here's what you need to understand, both in general agents and special agents. Can we sign documents on behalf of the seller or the owner or the buyer even, or make them legally binding? No, because we represent the transaction itself, not the person, right? So the seller still needs to show up and sell, the buyer still and sign, and the buyer still needs to show up and sign. Simple. But a power of attorney is totally different. See, a power of attorney is where I give you the power for signing something for me or handling something for me and making it, right here, making it legally binding. So a power of attorney, I'm giving you a specific authorization, right, to do something on my behalf and make it legally binding. So here's the best example, guys. Let's say quarantine is over. What is the first thing we're going to do? Write it down. What's the first thing we're going to do as soon as the quarantine is over? Vacation, exactly. Travel, party. Who wrote no comment? Sarah, no comment? Really? I don't even want to know what you're going to do then. Run away from kids. So vacation, yes. All right. Go to the mall. Take my test. Socialize. Invest. Good. All right. So, guys, Sarah wrote invest. Nice save. So, I would like to travel, right? Some of you wrote travel. Okay, great. Natalia said go to the mall. Really? Okay, careful. I don't think you should go anywhere where there's mass population. Just saying. I don't think it's still safe. But, okay, Sarah, okay, ladies, fine. Yes, home goods. Yes, mall. Yes, go spend. All right. Instead of investing, Sarah just went like, this was a flip-flop scenario. She said no comment, then she goes invest, and now, yes, home goods. If you're going to invest in home goods, you're wasting the money you could be investing in a home. A multi-family home. I'm just saying. Some of you, if you're able to manage your money throughout this pandemic and you got those extra $600 and so on, if you're saving it, maybe it's time to put that money to work and buy a multifamily. Get that money to come every month. Just saying. Anyway, if you didn't get that check, I'm sorry. Other resources. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a different time. My point was, a lot of people wrote travel, vacation. Yes, I would love to myself. Just I need a vacation from this vacation, right? And let's say you have a deal pending, and now your client decides to, oh, quarantine is over, we're going, we're out of here. And while they're out, the attorney calls you and says, closing date is tomorrow. What are you going to do? That's when these come into play. You got it? Power of attorney. If you know that your client is about to leave for more than X amount of days, right, and then you can figure out based on where you are in the transaction. But if they're about to leave, then do me a favor. Always ask them to prepare a power of attorney. Now, the power of attorney should not be given to you, the salesperson, but should be given to somebody they trust that could handle for them. It could be their attorney, make it legally binding. Okay? It could be their cousin, it could be their parents, it could be their kids. Whoever is over 18 and can, has the capability of signing. Okay? So very, very important. Power of attorney. Because it will say specifically, on this date, for this property, for this amount, for this whatever, everything detailed, I authorize this person to sign on my behalf and making it legally binding. So when they come back, they cannot say, wait a minute, I didn't buy this house, right? You, the realtor, did it. No, no, no. Power of attorney, and your person signed it. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Now, fiduciary responsibilities. Let's talk about fiduciary responsibilities or duties. Your duties include care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. Easily remembered by COLD. Okay? Care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. What does it mean to care? All right, guys? So what does it mean to care? Very, very important. To care means to put somebody's interest above yours. That's what it is. So it says right here that the agent must exercise a reasonable degree of care and diligence while transacting business on behalf of the principal. Now, brokers and agents are expected by virtue, right here, virtue of their licenses, to have the expertise in real estate matters greater than that possessed by the average person. See, you guys being in this class, you already have more experience than them. The average person does not know how the transaction goes and does not know their rights, your duties. They don't know anything about that. You are starting to know that. So you're already ahead of the game, right? But as a result, they may be liable to the principal for any loss resulting from negligence or carelessness. All right. Guys, in the chat, help me out. In the chat, you're going to write, let me just get to the chat real quick. Okay. You're going to write real quick in the chat, what is the first thing you guys going to do as soon as you get your license? So you got licensed today, active today. What is the first thing you're going to do? Not find the broker, because for your license to be active, you should already have the broker. I'm not asking when you pass the exam, I'm asking when you activate your license. And only your broker can activate the license. So that's gone. So what are you doing after you activate it? So tomorrow, make sure you list it with the state. Well, that's the activation. As soon as it's activated, it will be in the state. Without it, you're not active. Seek training, advertising, work with experienced agent, maybe shadow them. Let's hold on to that one. Listening, yep. Buy the E&O insurance, that's with your broker. Market myself, yep. Tell everyone you're a realtor, yep. Find buyers and sellers, there you go. All right, incorporate yourself. If you're doing state of New Jersey, it doesn't really work like that. We won't talk about this right now. But you can incorporate yourself and get paid through the corporation. So no, as an agent, you're an individual and you get hit as an individual, okay? But the first thing you really do is marketing. You guys wrote training, practicing, and all that stuff. Yeah, that happens, but you can practice. There's a lot of people that do this. They practice, die. Meaning, they practice so much. Tahira's like, what do you mean they die? I won't practice no more. What I meant is, all right, hold on. Where was I? Okay, so what I was telling you guys is that the first thing you do is market yourselves, because the training will come along the way. You can't just train. There's a lot of people that train and then give up because they're not making money. They have to go back to work for all the training that they did. Now they're done, right? So remember, training without action, or also here, learning without action, just doesn't mean anything. You're just wasting your time if you don't implement what you're learning, right? So the training was not the first thing you do. The first thing you do is marketing. So what they do is traditionally they have a really nice suit on or something, and that picture shows that you're a professional, right? You guys seen those business cards before? Great. So, but are you a professional? You just got licensed. What do you know? What do you know about real estate? Nothing, right? All right. So Natalia just sent me a picture. What is it? It's me frozen on the screen? Is that what it is? And she's smiling, so I bet that's what it is. All right, Shakia goes, fake it until you make it. Well, kinda. Be very careful how you fake it, because if they catch you, you could lose your license before you even start. What you should know is that, well, as soon as you have your license, you have no experience whatsoever, but you start marketing, you start showing everybody your business card, you start posting on Facebook, you start posting on Instagram, you start being everywhere, right? And what you need to know is people will start asking, okay, so you're a realtor, great. Like, not your friends and family, but everybody else that sees you on Facebook, or everybody you advertise to, or business cards you drop, or flyers, they're gonna start asking, okay, so great, help me. I wanna buy, I want to sell, whatever it might be, right? And what do you know? You have no experience. So what you're saying here is, guys, what we're saying here is, you must care so much for your client, right? You must care so much for your client that you will step out of the way if you need to. You can find somebody with experience to help you conduct the transaction. Who's that somebody? Could be your broker, could be somebody in your office, right? But somebody with experience. Are you gonna have to split the commission? Are you gonna have to split fees? I don't know, maybe. Each office is a little different. You guys understand? But don't try to do everything yourself when you have no experience, not even how to prepare a contract. All right? So that's what it means to care. In the next page it says, Courtney wrote, the license makes you a professional. Absolutely. The license makes you a professional, but if you don't know what you're doing, right? It makes you, as far as presentation, it makes you the professional, because they don't know you from before. They don't know how long you've been doing this. And you're not going to advertise, hey, just got licensed, right? Because then they're like, well, just got licensed, I'll pass, right? Does that make sense? You're not going to do that. So for all purposes, you are the professional and you know everything about real estate. But do you? Again, the answer is no. So your job is very important to get somebody with experience to help you. See, breach of duty of care, it says right here, the duty of care requires the seller's agent, amongst other things, to be knowledgeable about all aspects of the property. Tell me you guys know everything about the properties, about real estate, every detail, what to look for. No, not from this class, right? Because this is books, it's not real life. So also, you need to be able to arrive at a reasonable listing price. Tell me you know how to determine the listing price. I'm saying that your job is literally to figure out the best that you can for the client. So for the sellers, the highest possible sales price. Also, material facts, things that could affect the property. Meet deadlines, so beginning to end, make sure that you can help them get to or accomplish their goals. So our job is literally to grab somebody's hand and walk them through to the end of that transaction, to their goal, right? For the buyer is the same thing. But look what it says here. Failure to be properly informed about a property's condition and value and to effectively navigate the transaction through to closing constitutes a breach of duty of care. So if you're one of those agents that just doesn't care, right? You'll show up in the beginning and maybe you'll show up at the end, because some agents don't even show up at closing because they don't need to, right? So what kind of realtor are you going to be? What kind of agent are you going to be? Make sure you're there every step of the way. Like I said, for the buyer, same thing. You're supposed to walk them through. Next page, next paragraph, it says, the agent is expected to deliver the quality of service that a normal person would expect a reasonably prudent agent, right? From a reasonably prudent agent. Actions breaching this obligation might be failing to present a written offer before it expires, neglecting to mention in the purchase contract any fixtures or personal property desired by one of the parties, neglecting property being managed for another, improperly handling escrow deposits, or failing to obtain all necessary signatures on the contract. Now, this one happens a lot of times, failing to obtain all necessary signatures. The good thing is that now everything is e-signature. What does that mean? It's fillable and it tells you, hey, you cannot move forward because you're missing an initial here. You're missing a signature here. So it kind of like stops you on your tracks. When it was paper, and some agents still prefer paper, right? When it was paper, they would forget always some type of initial or signature or even put things in the wrong place, right? So now it helps you a lot. All right. Erica says, horrible. I would be very upset if my salesperson doesn't show up. Yeah, I would too. That's why we attempt the team that we work with, so even the mortgage people, we try to get them to show up at the closing. Kind of like, hey, we've been here, so we're your support. We're part of this, right? We attempt. But some agents, I call them ninjas. You know, because ninjas are the ones that throw that smoke bomb and disappear. That's what it is. They sign the contract, smoke bomb, disappear. And then you don't hear from them. The mortgage company is trying to reach out to them. Nobody's answering the phone, and so on. Horrible. Like Batman. Batman's a ninja. Oh no, he disappears. That's what you meant. Got it. All right. So look right here. It says the court set different standards of care for brokers and salespeople. So obviously, the higher you are in the rank, the worse it is. So if you're a broker, you have more liability. If you're a salesperson, you have a little bit less liability. All right? Special training, designations, education, so on also make you more liable for certain things. This is what I was telling you guys before. As soon as you get your license, what do you know? And the answer is nothing. So here it says the rookie residential agent, so somebody without experience, and especially if any experience is residential, when confronted with the opportunity to list a shopping plaza, they should probably, as I said, approach an experienced commercial broker with a request that they work together to list and sell the property. Again, I prefer to make less commission, share the commission, but accomplish the work, than try to do all the things myself and then not being able to sell because I didn't have experience in the subject matter, right? So that would be called breaching your duty of care because you are inexperienced and try to do it yourself, okay? Next one we have is obedience. Now, we're talking about lawful instructions, okay? Lawful instructions. We're not talking about obeying any instruction. Lawful instructions. So if they say, for instance, right here at the bottom, if they say 24-hour notice of showing, what does that mean? It means that if somebody calls you today to see the property, you schedule for tomorrow, not for today. Giving me enough time, me the seller, enough time to clean up the house, make it presentable. So give me enough time, right? All offers to the listing broker. Why? Because the listing broker is the one that knows about the offers and how what's the difference between an FHA, a conventional, a cash, the different things that they put into the addendums in the contract. He or she will be the one to explain to the seller which one is the best offer, right? So if the seller receives the offers and sees one for 105,000, another for 100,000, without knowing anything else, if you see 105 and 100,000, which one would you pick? The highest amount, right? Now, if the 100,000 is cash, while the 105 is a FHA loan, well, FHA will take 3 to 4 months to close. Cash we can close in 2 weeks. Which one would you take? Does that make sense? So that's why it should go through you and not through the seller to the seller directly. The other thing that's very important, you guys should always have this, is that every contract or every offer must come with a pre-approved mortgage letter. It's your job to know that the buyer is capable of buying, right? And how do we know they're capable of buying? It's either show me the money, so show me what you got in your bank account, or show me a pre-approved mortgage letter. Neither one of these guarantees that you'll be able to close, but it puts you in a stronger position. Does that make sense? Because a pre-approval means you're halfway there. You already went through certain steps. You're really interested and committed into finding a property. All right? But we'll talk about this when we get to chapter 13, mortgages. Chapter 14, we'll talk about this, actually. All right? Next thing we have on top is, however, we're on page 23. However, some instructions must be disobeyed. Must be disobeyed. Right? Such as, hey, realtor, I know there's mold. I'm going to paint it tomorrow. It will be okay. Don't worry about it. Don't say to anyone that there's mold. Right? Wait a minute. You're telling the realtor that there's mold. And you expect the realtor not to tell the buyer that there's mold. Let's hide it from them. Like, hey, make me liable as well. No. Okay? You don't have to obey that instruction. Or discrimination. Hey, realtor, only show houses to these kind of people. Do not show houses to those kind of people. Illegal. Discrimination. All right? And we have that chapter tomorrow. Chapter 4 is discrimination. So, just letting you know, there's no refunds because you're already on the second day. So, if anybody intends to discriminate, right, after tomorrow's chapter, it's your chance to quit this, and I appreciate your money. That's all. Okay? So, if you intend to discriminate, you are not fit for this business. You need to go. Just saying. And good luck trying to sue me for that money. But Your Honor, I intend to discriminate. I paid, but I didn't know you couldn't discriminate. Good luck with that one. You know what's funny, guys? We're going to talk about discrimination tomorrow. But it's funny is that I've had people here in the class and agents that I know that the first thing that comes out of their mouth is traditionally something discriminatory, right? In class, they're like the biggest saints ever. Oh, yeah, you can't do that. You can't do that. Out there, as soon as they open their mouth, I'm like, how did you get licensed? Right? So, unfortunately, I cannot point fingers. I cannot say that either one of you is going to discriminate. I hope you don't. And tomorrow is going to be, it's going to be heavy. It's going to show you guys a lot of fines and fees and potential jail time for discrimination. So, let's avoid it. Okay? Accounting. Shakia just wrote always. Always what? Do you discriminate always? All right, let me kick her out right now. All right, accounting. We talked about this yesterday. If I give you money, you're supposed to do what? If I give you money towards the deal, I'm supposed to do what? Oh, Mauricio was really quick jumping at the keyboard. Give it to the broker, exactly. So if I give you money, you're supposed to give it to the broker. And that means holding proper accounting, okay? Then the broker is responsible to put it in, within 5 business days into the bank account, the escrow account that we talked about, right? And make sure they don't mix with anything else. So commingle, correct? Make sure they don't do it. I know, Shaki. I know what you meant. I was just messing with you. All right. Now let's look at this one right here. An agent may not make any secret profit. Guys, what is secret profit? Who can tell me what is secret profit? You cannot make secret profits. What is it? Tell me. Connie goes bribes. All right. Cash tip, interest, kickback, money under the table, anything not disclosed in the HUD, tips under the table, assignment fees. Good. All right. So what you're trying to tell me is that you cannot make, somebody wrote cash tip. You cannot make cash tips. All right. Tell the client to give me less than 10,000, unless you're Mauricio. He'll say 9,999. But yes. Money outside of what the broker pays you. That as well. All right, guys. So secret profit. You're entitled to make bonuses. You're entitled to make more money. You're entitled to get extra. Not a problem with that. The thing is, it must be disclosed. It must be disclosed in every single transaction. So if there's any money to be paid, even if outside the transaction. So sometimes we get to the closing, and the closing is what it is, but there's a line on the CD, which is the closing statement, that says paid outside of closing, meaning these are the closing documents, but an extra 10,000 was given, an extra 5,000 is given. And no, it was not given to somebody else's mom. You cannot do that. That's still money laundering, Mauricio. But it's making extra money and not documenting it, because all the monies in every single transaction must be payable to who? The broker. You guys got it? So the broker must be fully aware of all the monies. Also, the IRS requests that if it's more than $10,000, as you guys already know, if it's more than $10,000, it must be reported to the IRS. Exactly. Steph just wrote it as well. So any additional money must be reported. Any money in the transaction must be reported. And that's why the closing documents clearly state how much was going to the seller, minus mortgage, minus fees, minus this, minus that, and this is how much they get. How much money does the buyer have to pay? And everything is detailed in such a way that all the pennies are mentioned in the transaction. Nothing is missing. You guys got it? So all monies must be disclosed. You cannot make secret profit, but you can make profits or extra profits. Okay? The net, valuable consideration. It'll be paid outside of closing. So, for instance, if they're giving you a car, let's say, if they're giving you a car, obviously it's not going to be in the closing at the table with you, right? So paid outside of closing in consideration would be a, let's say, $5,000, $10,000 car, as an example, right? But it has to be disclosed, any profit. So that is considered profit. If it's part of the transaction, it is profit. All right? Next, we got loyalty. Can anybody tell me, write it in the chat right now, real quick. Can anybody tell me what does it mean to be loyal? What is loyalty? Sarah, you're making a weird face. You don't know what loyalty is? I think she froze. Oh, no, she's there. Okay. Committed. Shakia says committed. Okay. Honesty. Confidentiality. Trustable. Committed. Okay. Trust. Committed. All right. Good. Wow, Rishi. Wow. Something my ex never gave me. All right. Whew. Just so you know, your statement right now just went on YouTube. So, yeah. Like therapy. Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it. All right. So here's the thing. Loyalty. In this case, we're talking more about confidentiality, because let's look at this. If you know the seller is going through a divorce, as an example, if the seller is going through a divorce, are you going to mention that to the buyer? No. You're loyal to money, but you must be more loyal to your seller, to your client. So you want to make sure you protect your client from that. Because if you tell the buyer, we talked about this yesterday, if you tell the buyer that the seller is going through a divorce, they'll bid lower. And that affects your commission as well. Think about it. So the money should not be your primary purpose. Being loyal to your client, committed to your client, and keeping certain things confidential should. Same thing for the buyer. If you know the buyer has more money, you represent the buyer. The buyer has more money than what they're showing in the offer. Are you going to run to the seller and say, hey, if they don't accept that one, if you don't accept that one, they have more. You going to do that? No. Which, by the way, could be a question in the state exam, something like that. Okay? Or in the school exam. I don't know. Maybe. All right, next. Next page says, breach of duty of loyalty. What you really need to know is this. Profiting from a client's misfortune is forbidden. So what we just talked about. So profiting from a client's misfortune is prohibited. Next. What do you mean, Tamari? An example like what? The profiting from a client's misfortune? Oh, well, that's what I was saying. So what sometimes what will be a question, sometimes happens in real life, is agents, they jump the gun because they want the commission. So they'll be like, hey, buyer, listen, they're desperate. They're going through divorce. Any offer will suffice. Come on, right? So by the buyer putting any offer, it's hurting the seller. So what is the misfortune in this one? Let's go back here. What is the misfortune? Well, they're going through a divorce. And you're taking advantage to get a quick sale because they'll suffer less, right? But they still get hurt on the outcome because they don't get paid the top dollar that they could expect. The buyer, which is not the person you represent, is benefiting from your client's misfortune. Does that make sense? All right. So that's what I was saying. Even on the reverse side, if your client is the buyer and they have more money, you're not going to run to the seller and say, hey, they're desperate. They need to buy now because of this or because of that. So they have more money. Let's do this. Right? Same scenario. Tara, when people ask why they're selling, can you say it then or no? Okay. The easiest answer to give to everybody. They are relocating. Isn't that true? In a divorce, you're moving. Moving, isn't it relocation? Even if you're buying or renting the house next door, you relocated from your house to the one next door. Simple. You guys got it? Simplest answer ever. Why are they selling? Oh, they're relocating. That's it. Next week they see them down the street. That's what happened. They relocated. That's it. All right, keep things simple. It's a lot easier. The transaction goes through and nobody. Listen, Mauricio, the moment you say upgrading, it could be downgrading. It doesn't matter. You're saying upgrading what? Because the relationship is over? Careful. Juliana is listening to this. Oh, they hit the lotto. That's what it is. Now you're getting into lies, and I wouldn't do that. Okay, try to be. How can I say this? Try to be as honest as you can in transactions, because if people start seeing you as a liar or two-faced or anything like that, it starts hurting your business. It's sad to say that people that are close to me that I know in different, they're white lies, they're white lies. People that I know, different offices and friends that I've known over the years, it's those little things that makes it enough for me not to deal with them anymore. Because I don't want to be wrapped in it. I don't want to be caught in it. All right? People want to see you with integrity. Now, if you were saying upgrading as a joke versus the hit the lotto, but the upgrading as a joke, they're upgrading their lifestyle. They're separated. Maybe it's an upgrade for the current situation. Maybe. But I still think that the blanket answer is the best for all. Relocating. Right? That's it. make this way doesn't make it doesn't include or exclude certain things. It's just broad, right? And what do you call it? People don't inquire more than that. They stop right there. It's like, okay, relocating, got it. The moment you say divorce, the moment you say they lost their job, the moment they say they're retiring, now you start opening the eyes to the buyer to ask more questions, right? So once they start asking more questions, guess what you tend to do? You answer more. And the more the buyer knows about the seller or vice versa, the stronger position they have to negotiate and the weaker position does your client have. You guys understand? So try to keep it as broad as you can. Never fall into the trap of details. Never. Unless certain details, which I'm going to talk about right after, which is under disclosure. All right. Courtney wrote, Mauricio, you just got hit with one. Juliana goes, loyalty. Courtney goes, same for me. If you can come up with small lies for nothing, what can you do in a bigger situation? Character and integrity are important. Yep. Only give the info needed for the house and nothing circumstantial. Yep. And listen, guys, sometimes we do it, we're just joking around or maybe not even thinking about the consequences of what we say or what we do, right? But as a professional, right, as a professional, it's like you're wearing a badge, okay? You're the realtor. You're wearing that badge. At that moment, you need to know the difference between you as an individual and you as the realtor. You as an individual can make jokes. You as a realtor can make jokes as well in certain instances without being affected. Now, we're going to end this chapter later on. We're talking about insurance and these omissions and errors that we might make because we're human, right? And we're not prepped for every single situation on what to say or not to say, right? But always try to keep it broad, easier to handle, okay? Now, next thing we got is disclosure. Right here, disclosure, guys. I just talked about keeping things confidential. Now I'm talking about disclosing things. Why is this important? Because if it's something that could affect the transaction. So I want you guys to write in front of disclosure. Right here, you're going to write. Ready? Disclosure, you're going to write anything. Ready? Anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. I'm going to write it here in the chat as well. Anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction. It's proposed transaction because we're still not closed, right? It didn't happen yet. Must be disclosed. So, guys, anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. Now, not the divorce, not the losing my home, not the anything, none of those details. I'm talking about mold. I'm talking about structural damage. I'm talking about an oil tank. We're talking about things, flood zone. If the house was flooded, absolutely. Being in a flood zone must be disclosed. Are you guys understanding? These are things that could affect the transaction because if the property has damage, what is the true value of the property? Is it what we're advertising or is it lower? Yep, lower. All right? So this is different from what I was saying before. I was talking before about not disclosing things, but that's personal things. Personal things do not affect the transaction, whereas the physical condition of the property affect the transaction. Here's another thing. What if the buyer loses his job? Do you think that could affect the transaction? Yeah, because they might not be able to buy. Now that's circumstantial and you need to address that one, unfortunately. It doesn't affect the house itself, but it affects the buyer's buying position. All right? So the agent must volunteer. I have it in green, not because it's a state question, but because you need to understand. You must volunteer the information even if the client did not ask. It's stuff that could affect them. Some agents will go like, oh, let me not say anything and let's transaction go through. Right? No. You must volunteer that information. Okay? Otherwise, there will be possible legal consequences in the contract. Now, breach of duty of disclosure or notice. And by the way, guys, this whole chapter is about disclosure. From now on, it is about disclosure, about telling people the conditions of the property and can you buy or can you not buy, can you sell or can you not sell. So the law considers that notice given to the agent has been given to the principal. So this means that if something was given to you guys, the agent, then the seller received it or the buyer received it. So if you know about it, they know about it. If you didn't tell them, then it's your problem, not theirs. You made yourself liable for not passing along the information. Okay? On the right-hand side, we already talked about all this. Let's go to broker-salesperson relationship. And here, we also talked about this as well. I'm just pointing out again that a person licensed to perform any real estate activities on behalf of a licensed broker is known as salesperson. We got that. What sometimes we don't get, and that's why I highlighted again, is that the salesperson is responsible to the broker under whom he or she is licensed. I find it way too often that this situation occurs. Like somebody's working for Remax, but they're trying to do deals with a Weichert agent, right? Hey, let's do it this way, and then we can work that way, and under the table. Wait a minute. Who do you represent? You represent your broker, not yourself, right? So all payments through your broker. Again, right here. You have no authority, in the next paragraph, you have no authority to make deals on your own, under your own name. Everything you do is on behalf of your supervising broker. So all of your activities must be performed in the name of that broker. Okay? If you don't like your brokerage, guys, $25, move. If you don't like it, just move. Oh, what about my pending transactions? Well, it's what I told you yesterday. There's something called prenup clause, which is what you need to look at every contract. How much is it going to cost you to move? If you don't move and you're always complaining about your broker, then it's hurting you. Do you understand? I had a friend of mine, he worked 26 years for the same agency. 26 years. Almost every year he was the top producer. And he never liked the agency. He never liked the structure. But he knew if he stopped working, he would get a big cut on the commission that he was entitled. My question to him was very simple. If you are a top producer at a place that you don't like, imagine what you could do in the place you liked. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Take the loss. Take the loss, that's it. And that's what we told him. And so it was my dad and I at the time, we told him that. He got out, he opened his own agency. He just opened his second branch office in the past 4 or 5 years, but he just opened his second branch office. Do you see what I'm saying? He was stuck in an agency for 26 years, a place he didn't like, being the top producer. Now he has his second branch office. He has 3 offices and making money. Simple. If you don't like where you are, take the loss. Move forward. Make it better. Simple. All right? But don't go and start doing deals in one agency while you have deals pending in another agency. Don't do that. Okay? Melissa, when your broker license is suspended, how long does it take to be reinstated? Or it is until if the broker's license is suspended, it will be reinstated based on whatever the cause was. So if I don't know what the cause is, I cannot give you that exact answer. You as a salesperson, if they were suspended and it was not your fault, you as a salesperson, you need to move to another agency right away in order to activate yours. While they're suspended, there's nothing you can do. You meant canceled? What? They can't. They stopped their. I'm not understanding the question, Melissa. They stopped their. Like, they quit real estate temporarily. Is that what it is? Because again, to be reinstated, you might have to go through certain things, like 75 hours again. You might. If it's in the past 5 years, you might not have to do the whole 75 hours. You might not have to do it at all. So if your broker's license got canceled and salesperson suspended. So again, if your broker canceled, your license does not become suspended, it's inactive. All right? So being inactive, you can just go and switch to wherever you want. Okay? Now let's talk real quick about independent contractor versus employee. And the difference is very, very simple. It's based on I love the comments that I receive. So the independent is based on tax purposes and the obligations you have in the office. So the difference between these two is taxes and obligations. So let's go to the next page. By the way, we're on page 25 for those always asking pages. So Brian, we still have about 23 pages to go. We're almost there. All right, here we got employer-employee. So let's look at employee first, and that's what most of you are, or were until now, right? The employer-employee relationship allows a broker to exercise certain controls over salespeople. If you're an employee, then the broker can require the employee to work certain hours, office routine, or even dress standards. If you're an employee. If you're independent, that's different. If you're an employee, then your employer, the broker, is required by the federal government to withhold Social Security taxes as well. And maybe, depending on how many employees, he might have to provide also health insurance, right? So this is the biggest difference between employee and independent, is that most salespeople, they work as independent contractors. And as independent contractors, they assume the responsibility for paying their own income and Social Security taxes. So you receive a full paycheck from your broker, and then you're responsible for your own deductions at the end of the year. You guys got it? The other difference is, in green right here, brokers cannot require that independent contractors work certain hours. Brokers cannot require that you attend office meetings, nor can they pay you a salary. You're either an employee or independent. Independent, you are your own boss, you make your own hours, you wear whatever you want, within reason, of course, right? And you go to meetings whenever you want. As an employee, if you don't do these things, you get fired. As an independent, you don't get fired, all right? Now, I will address your questions that you got here in a second. But as an employee, again, you have certain rules, regulations to go. As an independent, even though, guys, and pay close attention to this, not for a state exam, but for you guys. Even though you are your own boss, even though you can work whatever hours you want, right? Even though you don't have to attend office meetings, make sure you do all these things as much as you can. Okay? Dress standards, make sure you're professional. Okay? At least business casual. Meetings, try to attend as many office meetings as you can, even if it's repeated. Very important. And you guys will learn from what's happening here. You will learn that without repetition, without being into it, without being engaged in the actual practice of real estate, and meetings involve that, right? Without proper training, you will forget things. You won't be able to do it. And then you're calling your broker every 2 seconds. What do I put in line 2? How do I do this? How do I do that? And guess what? Even though your broker's there for you, if now they have 100 agents, how can they provide for all? And then if they don't answer one day because you missed the meeting, right? If they don't answer one day, you're going to blame your broker. Do you know how many times I've heard that? Where people don't show up for meetings, and then on a Sunday, this is a true story, that's why I'm mentioning Sunday. Sunday at 10:30 p.m., calling the broker and asking, how do I do this? How do I do that? Are you understanding this? When we just had that training on a Tuesday, so it was not at this agency, I'm just letting you guys know this happened. If you were at the training, I would have given you that information. Do you guys understand? Oh, but I've done contract training already. This is a contract issue. I've done contract trainings already. Well, apparently not enough, because you're still asking me the same question, which is basic to the contract. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Go to as many meetings, as many trainings as you can. Once you're experienced and you want to wander free, hey, totally up to you. But in the first 3 years, you have no experience. Even if you've done one contract, you have no experience. You've done 5 contracts, you have no experience. I have people that keep on asking me questions in contracts, even though they've done 10. You guys understand that? So I just wanted to point out, because even though you are independent, you are your own boss, you should have the same rules and regulations as if you're an employee. Make yourself work those hours. Make yourself attend those meetings. All right? We cannot make you do these things. You should make yourself. All right? So let me go here to the questions real quick. Mauricio, what about if a seller does not disclose info about the property? For instance, if they had flood damage and it didn't go through insurance, no claims, and town had no record under Oprah request. Okay. So if you don't know and you find out, you guys remember we've been talking about 6 years? Joshua, don't drink wine like that, man. Not in front of us. Like he's gulping from the bottle. Oh, it's not wine? I got you. All right. Look at that. So if we've been talking about the 6 years several times, because 6 years, when we get to contracts, I'll explain that better, but it's a statute of limitation. 6 years is the amount of time that you have to sue the seller or the realtor in a real estate transaction. So if you find out within 6 years that there was previous damage to the property that was never reported, right, and it was not fixed properly, then the seller is liable for it. You guys got it? So very, very important that you talk to the seller. Yeah, the realtor could be liable too. So we're going to talk about that actually coming up. It's towards the end of this chapter, your liability. So yes, you could be liable too. That's why, guys, we need to ask all the time, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, is there anything that you haven't told me yet? Consider me your doctor. If you don't tell me that your leg is hurting as well, I cannot properly diagnose your headache. Does that make sense? Sometimes we go to the doctors, we have a headache, but it's because of another underlying problem. So they give you a pill for the head, and then you have another problem, and you're just damaging even more. So Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you have to tell me everything. Otherwise, just know that both you and I can get sued within the next 6 years. Put it out like that. And you're going to see how quick they start responding. Okay? Next. What do we got here? Erica, how many chapters? Today is just one. It is a long chapter. I know, I did warn you guys about it. It is a long chapter. I'm going to give you guys a break in a little bit. We're almost there. But it's the only chapter we're covering today. Next, Erica wrote 1099. Yep, as a independent, you get paid 1099. Tara wrote, do you get to choose or the broker does? I'm assuming you're talking about employer versus employee. So here's the thing. Salespeople, you are independent, period. Can you be an employee as well? The answer is yes. You could be an employee, for instance, if you're a secretary. During like the morning, you're a secretary, you're getting paid for secretarial work. And in the afternoon, you go and be a realtor. So you have a salary and you have your independent salary as well. So it's completely separate. So it's the commission and whatever as an employee. So if you are an employee, then I expect you to be here from 9 to 1 as an example, as a secretary. After 1, you can go and be independent. So can it be both? Traditionally, strictly independent. So You're responsible for your own taxes because it's strictly commission. Next. Juliana already addressed if the realtor didn't know if they're liable. Yes. Does the seller sign anything stating the damages? Yep. So in a little bit, and this addresses Stephanie as well. In a little bit, I'm going to explain this to you, that the seller should be signing what's called a seller's property condition disclosure statement. So they should sign something. A lot of realtors forget this. When they put a listing together, they forget to put the seller's property disclosure statement. So I'm going to show you in a little bit, right after the break, that we need to point fingers at the people that's supposed to know. So as a realtor, if it's not your job to know, and something the inspector should know, it was the inspector's fault. As a realtor, if it's something that nobody other than the seller would know, like what Mauricio just pointed out, right? Then you point at the seller. But how can you do that without having something in writing? So home inspection, there's a paper trail, there's a report, right? Appraisal, there's a paper trail, there's a report. And when it comes to the property itself, who knows the property better than the seller? You? No, the seller. So the seller should sign a document that will explain the conditions of the property to the best of his knowledge. If they say they did not know and signed that document, now they're in big trouble. And you, the realtor, can say, wait a minute, they signed it, I did not know, I asked, I made them fill this out, it's not on me. Okay, guys? Next, broker's compensation. How do we get paid? So if you guys scroll down, broker's compensation, it says that the broker's compensation is specified in the listing agreement, buyer-broker agreement, management agreement, or other contract with the principal and is subject to negotiation between the parties. Compensation is often computed as a percentage of the total amount of money, but it could also be a flat fee or hourly rate. Now, traditionally, we don't do hourly rates, so forget about it. But we do a percentage or flat fee. There's a lot of companies or agents that work on a flat fee basis. Okay, the majority of them, they do percentage. Now, the commission or fee is usually considered to be earned when the broker has accomplished the work for which he or she was hired. Pay attention to what I'm about to say. Okay? I'm going to repeat this part just so you guys can pay attention. The commission or fee is usually considered to be earned when the broker has accomplished the work for which they were hired. Question: when do you get paid? Give me the answer. When do you get paid? Write it down. After closing, traditionally, right? Now, here's my other question. When do you earn your commission? When do you earn your commission? Nope. Off the top. What is that, David? I don't know. Jonathan goes, as soon as you start working with a client. Kinda. Alright, guys. So here's the thing. There's two different things that we need to understand. There's getting paid and there's earning. So before I move forward, if you're an employee, when do you earn your commission? As you work, right? If you worked 40 hours, you get paid next week for the 40 hours you worked the previous week, right? If you worked 30 hours, then you get paid for the 30 hours. Isn't that how it is for an employee? So you earn your commission as you go as an employee, right? I'm sorry, you earn your salary as you go. So you're filling up the pot to be paid all the days. Now, if you're hired by the seller, when do you accomplish the work for which you're hired? Your job is to find the buyer. Your job is not to conclude the sale. Your job is to find a buyer who is ready, willing, and able. Ready to buy the house, willing to buy that house, and able financially to buy that house. As soon as you find a buyer, you put a contract, you've earned your commission. Okay? So it says right here, unless there's an agreement to the contrary, after a listing broker procures the ready, willing, and able buyer, the seller technically is, look right here, technically is liable for the broker's commission. Liable for the commission. So you're entitled to the commission. But do you get paid at the time of contract? Because a lot of contracts don't go through, says right here, even though the fee is actually earned earlier, we do make sure that the contract is paid only at closing, at the actual sale. Because again, it might not go through. So just because you put an offer doesn't mean that it's closed. You guys understand? You've earned your commission, you've earned your $10,000, you've earned your $20,000, you've earned your $100,000 commission, whatever it might be. But do you get paid then? No. Only when you close is when you get paid. All right? So I want to be clear about that. There's earning and collecting or getting paid. Earning because you found the buyer, you put a contract, now it's out of your hands. Now it's the title company, now it's the attorney, now it's the mortgage, now it's everybody else, and you're there just consulting for the remainder of the process. You got it? You get paid once that process finishes, but you earned as soon as you matchmake. That's it. Okay? So let's see what we got here. Queenie says after the broker gets his cut and they take all the fees. Absolutely. So broker gets paid after the closing, at the closing, and then you get a split. Mauricio, absolutely the same thing that Queenie just said. So, but understand what I was saying before. Earning, getting paid. So earning and collecting, two different things. Be clear about that in the questions. When do you earn your commission? When you find a ready, willing, and able buyer. Okay? There might be a question. When you earn your commission, they give you 4 answers. One says at closing, the other one says when you find a ready, willing, and able buyer. Okay? Earning is different than collecting. Remember that. Now, we just talked about this. Is it possible that a transaction does not go through? Absolutely, all the time. That's why you cannot be heartbroken if something happens like that. You got to be ready. Okay, this one fell through. Buyer, let's go to the next one. Simple. Seller, I'm sorry it happened. I got another one lined up, ready to go. Do you see what I'm saying? Don't let yourself go down because transaction did not go through. Just move and push to the next one. Now, even though you might, the transaction might not go through, right? You might still get paid. Now, does that make any sense to you? We did not close, but you might still get paid. It should, because you've earned your commission. You've done your job. So the only way for you to get paid in a transaction, if it doesn't go through, is for any of these reasons. The owner changed his mind and refuses to sell. Tell me, after a contract is in place, owner refuses to sell. Is that your fault? No. There are defects in the title that are not corrected, meaning the owner is not fixing the problem. Is that your fault? The owner commits fraud with respect to the transaction. Is that your fault? Hopefully not, right? Don't be part of fraud. So what we're saying, and if you guys read the rest of the bullet points, pretty much what we're saying here is that a broker generally is due a commission if the sale did not finalize because of the principal's default. Because the principal, the client, right, seller or buyer, is the one that backed out of the deal for no apparent reason or because they committed fraud or whatever it might be. Okay? But you might still be entitled to commission. Now, that's first state exam. In real life, let me tell you something. Thank you. Next. Don't get stuck on, oh, but I worked, but I've done, but I this, but I that. I'll tell you right now, most of the times, unless it's like a major deal and a lot of commission to go hunt, most of the times, you're just going to be swimming in the water and not getting to land. Let's put it like that. Okay? So have a lot of deals in the pipeline. One falls through, great. I got 10 more coming. Don't worry about it. And keep on filling that pipeline. You guys got it? Thumbs up? Great. Shirley, that no that you just wrote was you didn't get it, or no to my previous question? I just saw a no now, and I'm like, oh boy, what did I do? Oh, to the question before. Great. All right, guys. I'm gonna skip a few pages, and then we're really almost ready for that break. It's in this next page, okay? So I want you to go to page 31. I'm getting there. Page 31. Is everybody on page 31? Great. So, the broker is usually entitled to a fee. We already mentioned this. If they are the procuring cause of the sale, that means they produced a ready, willing, and able buyer. That's what a procuring cause means. You're the one that procured or solicited or found a buyer for the transaction. So if you are the reason for that to happen, you're entitled to your commission. You guys got it? Okay. Now, where several brokers disagree, and I just want you guys to focus on this a sentence here for a second. Where several brokers disagree as to which one brought about the sale, meaning I had a buyer, you had the same buyer, because buyers, they're not committed to anyone. It's like an open relationship. They go find whoever finds them the deal, right? So buyers are just jumping around. And then, hey, I showed that property. That's my buyer. And then you go like, no. I showed them that property. That's my buyer, right? The one with the best claim to be the procuring cause is often difficult to determine. See, in some cases, you will be the one who first introduced the buyer to the property. In others, will be the one that actually brought the parties into an agreement. So put a contract together. And what we're saying here is very simple. As I was explaining already, it's very simple. If let's say, who do we got here? Sandra. Sandra wants to buy. And she goes to Victoria and says to Victoria, look, I want to have a single family house, $300,000, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Union, as an example, okay? What is Victoria going to do? Victoria is going to go to the MLS and enter the exact specs that the client asked, correct? She enters that into the MLS, and what's going to pop up? I don't know, 20, 30 properties. And then out of those 20, 30 properties, Victoria is going to go like, okay, this property does not fit the description of what my client wants. They want a garage. This one doesn't have it, so take it out, take it out, take it out. Then we're down to 10 properties. So you forward those 10 properties to your clients, and your client Sandra says, okay, I want to see the 10 properties. Let's go. You guys go see the 10 properties, and there's one that she really likes, but she still wants to see more. Because buyers are most of the times undecisive. So let's look at more. Like 10 was not enough. Let's look at more, right? And I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm just giving an understanding of what real life is. So 10 is not enough. Let's look at more. And Victoria goes back to the MLS, and there's nothing else. So Victoria tells Sandra, Sandra, here's the thing. I haven't found anything else yet, but I'll keep you posted. I'll actively search every day. I'll even put notifications, because you can do that in the MLS, notifications specific to you. So the properties that we've been looking at, if anything pops up on the market, or if it changes price, I'll get a notification right away. And Sandra goes like, great. All right. Now, 2 days go by, nothing. 3 days go by, nothing. A week goes by, nothing. Depending on the market you're in, you could go a whole 2 weeks or 3 weeks without not having a brand new property on the market, or without changes to property values, right? So then Joshua comes into play, right? Because he's a friend of Sandra's sister, as an example, right? And Sandra's sister goes like, oh, forget Victoria. She's just wasting your time. It's been 2 weeks and she hasn't showed up anything. I got my guy, Josh. He's the one. He's been great. He helped me a lot, right? So, Sandra, you got to talk to Josh. I'm pretty sure that he can help you. Have you guys heard stories like this before? All right. So, nothing new here. The only thing that you probably don't know is that Josh is going to go to the same MLS, put the same entry into the MLS search, and most likely is going to have the same results that Victoria had. It's the same town, it's the same 300,000, the same three bedroom, 2 bath, right? What do you think is going to be different from his list to my list or to Victoria's list? Same, right? So then Josh goes like, hey, maybe 1 or 2 different properties, but let's say Josh goes to Sandra and says, hey, Sandra, I found these properties. You want to go look at them? And Sandra says no to the majority of them, but wants to see again the same property she really liked when Victoria showed her. And maybe 1 or 2 different ones that Josh found, new ones, let's say. So, long story short, they get to the property that Sandra really liked initially with Victoria, and Sandra says, this is the one. What is Josh going to do? Josh is going to put it in the contract. You got it? He's going to put it in the contract. He doesn't know about Victoria, maybe because he didn't ask, because he's such a great agent, he never asked, hey, Sandra, by the way, Josh, I'm not offending you. This is just for recreational purposes or educational purposes. So then he goes to Sandra, instead of asking, did you search for properties before? How did you get to me? How did you get to the whole real estate thing? You never asked. So now you put her in the contract. And Victoria shows up when she sees, wait a minute, Sandra, you bought a property already? But nothing else was on the market. What happened? Well, you know the property that we saw that I really liked on Broad Street? Yeah, I bought that one. I'm like, okay, well, I showed you that property, so, says Victoria, so that commission is mine. Oh, that's between you and Josh. You guys figure it out, right? Because, believe me, it could be your best friend. When it comes to monies, it wasn't me. So that's between you and the other agent. He should have known better. I did not know he had to go through you. I did not know, right? So the question now is, who's entitled to commission, guys? After this whole story, this whole presentation, who's entitled to commission? Is it Victoria or Josh? Who's going to get those $8,000? All right. Some people are rooting for Victoria. She's happy. Some people are rooting for Josh. He's hiding. Ashamed, huh? For taking somebody else's commission, huh? I see how it is. All right. Here's the thing, guys. I just said often difficult to determine. When we go to litigation, to arbitration, I'm sorry, not litigation. When we go to arbitration between them two, there's going to be a question. And the question is very simple. Victoria, did you follow up or did you let it slide? Did you take a week to get back to your client? Did you present any new properties? Did you go back to that property? Because if she really liked that property, why didn't you ask her to see it again? Nothing else is on the market. Let's go see it again. Right? So, Victoria, did you do any of these things? Did your client reject you or ignore your messages, or you were the one that ignored your client? You see what I'm saying? So, because you might have neglected your client, it's really not your client. That's all I got to say. So Josh would win in this case. There might be a question at the end of this chapter or in the school exam or even the state exam that's very similar to this. And what you need to think about is follow-up, because follow-up is key. If you didn't follow up with your client, then he was never your client. You got it? Therefore, Josh wins. If you followed up with your client, then you win. Okay? Shoot me questions if you have. Moving forward right now. Oh, wait. Shaisha says, you said Josh had the contract made for signature. Shaisha, where do I have you on the screen? Hold on. Let me look at you for a second. There you go. All right. Hi. Can you translate? Because you just wrote, you said Josh had contract made for signature. I'm not understanding. All right. Some of you don't have your cameras on. If it's the first time, you need to have your cameras on. If you are repeat, if you're just waiting, redoing this while you're waiting for your exam for the state, then you don't need to. But if it's the first time, you definitely need, so we can account for your hours. Okay. See, oh, okay. So what I said, Chase, is that Joshua, he found the same client, and the client was Sandra. So same client. Now he went to show the property, the same property that Victoria had shown, right? And that's the reason why he was able to put up a contract together. So the client signed the contract with Josh, but nobody told Victoria, hey, Victoria, thank you for showing the property to our mutual client. Would you like to split the commission because you did half the work? Would you like a referral fee because you did some of the work? Or maybe ask your client, hey, you've seen this property with somebody else before, then go back to that somebody else. No, Joshua didn't do that. But what I was trying to say is that if Victoria did not follow up, if she was not present in the client's life, then that client was not hers. So Joshua is entitled to the commission because he did prepare the contract for the ready, willing, and able buyer that the other person did not attend to. You guys understand? So that was the issue here. So he didn't make up a signature or make up a contract. He put a contract together or an offer for the same client, but because Victoria did not handle it. That's pretty much what it is. All right, next we got meeting of the minds. Real quick, meeting of the minds is just we're all in agreement to the terms. So seller and buyer are in agreement with the terms, right? Not me, not you, but the seller and the buyer agree to the price, down payment, and financing method. Okay. Go to salesperson compensation at the bottom. We went through that. Agency, we already covered all that. Okay, right above disclosure of agency. Courtney, I'll address you in a second. Right above disclosure of agency, sorry, it says, so on the right-hand side of this page, it says the broker has the right to reject agency contracts that in his or her judgment violate the ethics or high standards of the office. And in fact, we're going to talk about this a couple times tomorrow in chapter 10. They must reject contracts that could cause the broker to violate the law. So if somebody says that they intend to discriminate, don't get into a contract with that person. Reject it right away. Tomorrow we're going to talk about that. Okay? So this is the last thing, and we're going to go into break, but let me address real quick. Courtney, she said, the person entitled to commission was the person that was more active in the relationship. You can point it out like that and think about it like that. Yes. If somebody did not show up, right, to the plate, they did not take over the position that they should have taken, then they lose. That's what it is. So follow up, be active in that business relationship, and you win. You're not active in the business relationship, you lose. All right? Okay, guys, I'm going to give you guys a quick break. I'm going to give myself a quick break, and we'll be back. It's 7:55, so 8 o'clock, okay? 5 minutes. Be right back.